to have a healthy income, to support you. Okay, wait, there is a recording message coming on. Do you see the screen, or do you see all the other messages that's coming on the screen? Minta maaf, the technology is
I see the screen.
Screen, yeah?
Yeah.
So the other messages you don't see, you just see my slides, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, so in the budget 2020, at least for Malaysia, and recognize that there are, other regional colleagues who've joined us from Jakarta and all that. So I'm sharing the Malaysian budget announcement. Where are the opportunities? Have we made real progress, and what else is needed? I think specifically in the budget announcement, there was one component that relates to digital and e-commerce and the gig economy. So the specific announcement was the introduction of the Malaysian digital Nomad. So when they talk about Nomad too, it's the gig economy, like people who work independently and do different things, as you know, the word nomad, right? So what the budget announcement attempts to create is that a digital nomad community and ecosystem in Malaysia as a catalyst for e-commerce and digital talent. So that's the move in the right direction. But when we look at the other regions, our neighbors, mainly in ASEAN, Singapore, Thailand, and Indonesia already have some form of incentives or initiatives to actually attract digital talent. Why? Because in the country we don't have enough, and that's reflected in the survey that was done by my colleague on the digital talent, and where in Malaysia we have a shortfall. Jadi the digital nomad concept is something where it attracts highly skilled digital talent from all over the world, globally, and also looks at how we plug into the expertise that they have for us to actually move our digital economy faster, because we need to accelerate, and also to actually look at how we do transfer of knowledge and expertise to Malaysians. So that's almost an accelerated sort of program to start moving our digital economy from just a consumer-based economy to actually a creator-based economy. So creator-based economy is also something that is, talked about globally, how people create solutions, people create, products and services to address social issues or economic imbalances, or even the supply and demand, to meet supply demand in a more efficient way. So the creator economy is tagged very strongly with the digital economy. Like I said, for Malaysia, we have to move from a consumption of digital tools and services to creators of digital tools and services. So I'm sharing this slide through the Dr. Hawa. Inshallah, she will, disseminate to everyone so you can look at it deeper. And I'm happy to actually, take on questions later. The next is sustainability. So I've moved from the talent punya topic to now to sustainability, and looking at what's been announced, what are the progress and all that. So the Bursa Malaysia, and I'm fortunate enough to be part of the team that looks at sustainable development with Bursa Malaysia, that's our stock exchange, to really develop this voluntary carbon market, and where you can purchase and sort of sell carbon credits. This has been done in Europe, and Europe has done it successfully. Right now, we're looking at how do we create that mechanism, simply because, a zero carbon economy is not really practical at this stage, because we're still dependent on fossil fuel. Our electricity is still powered by coal. So when you talk about sustainability and you have all this in our environment, it's very difficult for you to move into a zero carbon or net zero carbon sort of economy. So this market is actually created to see how you can offset, companies and industries can offset their carbon, and those acquire carbon credits, and then sort of move it into projects that's going to store either the carbon storage technology or sequestration. I don't know how to pronounce that word, it's very difficult for me. As in, protecting forests and all that, so that then the forests are our natural carbon sink, right? So in my time in Khazanah, I worked on this project quite a bit in down south in Johor, because we wanted to preserve the the Tanjung Piai mangroves, because mangroves is the first defense for floods and even tsunami when you look at the study, when you talk about disaster management and all that. So then we did evaluation on how then companies who emit carbon could actually then transfer that into a carbon credit. And then there is this marketplace. So Bursa is positioning to do that. There's also exemptions of electronic vehicles. That's good. Infrastructure on charging of your electronic vehicle needs to also be accelerated. But at the very least, we look at our public transport to be, electrified. Ataupun now in Europe in COP26 yang masih ongoing, about to tail end to finish, is also talking about hydrogen as another form of energy. So then there is exemption for all of us if you buy electronic cars, and then of course the sukuk and the sustainability sukuk. The next bit is I go a bit deeper, the focus areas on prosperity and sustainable economy, the sustainability agenda, what we talked about it, the low carbon practice, how is industries and sectors going to move towards a more low carbon, existence, and meet our target of being net zero carbon by 2050 or carbon neutral by 2030. So these are kind of targets that are big, but when you look at the firm level, what do the companies do to actually then meet this carbon commitment? Lepas tu look at transitioning. I will send this. These are the details about what it covers in the ESG. I won't go through it because we're pressed for time. And there is also a report that was released by KPMG in the Readiness Index Report 2021 that says for Malaysia, our position is not so bad. Against the 86 countries that they profile, we are number 21st, 2021 in terms of our readiness to be net zero. So and I will also share the full report for all of you to read through it. So dia tunjuk dah yang mana sektor-sektor yang we need to address for us to actually maintain and have a good stronger position to be net zero, net carbon zero, and then looking at our commitments towards that. So our advantage is our natural forest in Sabah, Sarawak. We still have a very big land that's covered by natural forestry, which we need to preserve. So that's where our rating is much better than the rest. I will end here, and this is something that I mapped out throughout my time, looking at how we start from charitable giving that was pre-2000, and then early 2006 there was the CSR movement, and then we become integrated. We see the integrated reporting of companies and even the stock exchange. Securities Commission is also looking at disclosure and all that. And then 2020 onwards is the strategic sustainability. What are the things that we do collectively to get to a collective impact where there is a marked reduction of carbon, because we all have looked at the reports, we look at the science. Climate change is not some boogeyman that we think is somewhere in our realm of our imagination. It's real. Global warming, the climatic change, and the weather patterns is very severe now, and then it's also affecting our health. There's a movement on planetary health, looking at how we look at the general well-being that is driven by impacts to climates that is caused by human beings. So that's my last slide. I thank you very much for your attention. Kita ada about 10 minutes or so for questions or a little bit more. Thank you very much. I hand over to our moderator, Dr. Terima kasih banyak.
Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Sherlyn, for your insight. Actually, this is quite a good title, especially it is more or less the same as my expertise in the sustainability and then for the energy efficient. And actually, I'm quite happy with the, especially for the sustainability bond that has been announced. So that's considered as a good allocation for us, for the researchers, for the industry, and practitioner. And I'd like to open the question, if there is any questions from our participant or from the maybe from the panelists.
I was going very fast because I was conscious of time. So we have quite a bit of time for Q&A. Ataupun
it's
kalau nak
okay.
saya repeat any parts of it, I'm happy to do that. But you're right in terms of the bonds and the sukuk, because it's important to raise funding to actually have this transition. Because the debate with growing or emerging economies like ours compared to the developed nations is that really if you look at the history, the developed nations have actually is a significant contributor to the problem that we have today with climate change. But having said that, with us as developing nations, we also want the same thing. We also want our fast cars, our big homes, our electricity, whatever, right? So how do we rebalance that? And really, we need a lot of investments to go into it to move that. So it's about infrastructure, it's about people and behaviors.
Okay.
Maybe it's too early in the morning. Tak ada question.
Tak ada masalah.
Excuse me, Shireen, I got one question.
Yes, Prof. Abah.
Now you're more into gig economy, right? And those who are, gigpreneur, for example, or these freelancers, they spend most of their time at home. They don't travel out. And basically, I think they are also contributing towards sustainability, right? So can
Absolutely.
we say that by being gig means we are very friendly to the environment.
Betul. That's a nice way of putting it. Sebab kita don't travel, we don't emit as much carbon as others who go back and forth to work, right?
Right.
So
being in gig economy, should we not be given more benefits from the recent budget? Because I got one in the house currently, earning some money but stays at home most of the time. Customers all over the world, so he says he's helping the environment. Do you think that the budget is not friendly enough for those in the gig economy?
Yeah, you hit it on the nail. Not at all. Sebab okay lah, the government has come halfway in terms of the social protection, the social security. Sebab now the gig economy talent can also access some of the social services also and all that, right? But here's the thing, this is where the structural change is needed in the economy. Sebab kita punya Employment Act is 1955. Although we've done some revisions of the Employment Act, we have not kept up with the trends of the future of work, the gig economy and all that. So kebanyakan of the people who work in the gig economy are not recognized as workers because our regulations or our laws are in that way. So in 2019, I think the government tried to make some changes in the Employment Act, and then it sort of went quiet. So then the debate with the gig economy talent is that, okay, so we don't have access to the social services and all that. That means, we shouldn't be taxed for our income as well. So that's a big debate. Sebab we don't even have a digital tax and all that, right? Tetapi kita tak dapat the services from what a traditional organization gives, but we are required to pay income tax as well. So there's a big debate about that. Sebab if we have access to the services and all that, then the income tax punya distribution or kita punya contribution is commensurate lah. Tetapi tak ada. There's a great imbalance in that. But we've not kept up to the global, the global movement in terms of revising our Employment Act. Our Employment Act is so backward, if I may say so, within the confines of the group here, and we need to push for changes in the legislation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Nice question. Alhamdulillah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you, Prof. Okay, so now I think we can maybe we can end for the first speaker's presentation. Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Shireen. Okay, so now, for the second speaker, okay, for the SME's business recovery. So I would like to welcome Professor Dato Dr. Abdul Aziz Abdul Latif, okay, to give his insight on this topic. And would you please welcome Professor. Thank you.
Sorry. Okay, let me. Can you hear me? Everybody can hear me?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Terima kasih. Thank you very much, Dr. Muhammad and Professor Dato' Omar Osman, the Vice Chancellor, the distinguished speakers and all participants. Selamat pagi. Assalamualaikum. And good morning. Okay, thank you very much for inviting me to this rather interesting discussion to look what are the way forward after the budget 2020. But my topic, the topic was given to me is on SME or SMSE, micro MSME. Dulu tak ada micro, now they put micro in front. Micro, small and medium enterprises. As we all know, the government are very pay a lot of attention to SMEs. If we look at the budget to 2022, 14.2 billion allocated to the SMEs program for the year 2022. But this 22 is a bit different from the previous years because of the pandemic. A lot of SMEs are unable to operate, especially in the service businesses. The whole chain of service businesses, especially in the tourism industry, you look at the whole chain of businesses from accommodation, food services, beverages, transportation, etc. So it affected a lot of on the operation of the SMEs. But I think in this 2022, emphasis was given to this for the recovery of this industries, especially those in the micro enterprises. This year we see a special fund allocated out of 14.2 billion to SME. Special fund allocated for target relief and recovery facility, 2 billion of that. I think government are really government intervention is still very important in SMEs. If you look at I would like to go back to the previous master plan. I was involved in the second master plan, which be a part of the developing cluster subcontracting job, especially the link between the large and small industries. But the latest master plan are focused more on to enhancing the SMEs. I would like to go back. Let's show the first slide. Show the first slide. Okay. Okay. This is the too big. We look at this. This is the just for the for our information. So actually boleh kecil sikit slide ni. I tak nampak. I cannot see from my screen. I nampak besar sangat. I nampak separuh saja. Boleh kah? Macam mana? Ataupun okay, right. Macam mana nak pindah ni? Still cannot see. Okay, just a minute. Sebenarnya saya tak nampak from my screen ni. Saya nampak separuh saja. How can I plus sorry ya, sekejap saya ada sedikit apa nama ni. Okay now. This is the definition. I think I purposely put this. This is that's for us to see what is actually SMEs and micro and small and medium enterprises. They are divided into two categories: manufacturing and also service sector. Both are affected by the pandemics. We look at our definition is not that really big, compared to other countries like developing countries. In the US, 300 million paid up capital or turnover still considered as small enterprise. Similarly, Korea, Japan, etc. So okay, let's go to the next slide. I just want Okay, that's if we see here, 90% of our establishment, SME establishment is about 97.3%. This is 2020 data. 20 to 97, but the contribution to the GDP is about a bit more than 30%, which is a huge gap. But and the 90% of it are in the service industry. These are mostly affected during the budget. During the pandemic. Manufacturing also affected. Construction work affected. Agriculture may be less affected because of the need for the for food security purposes. So 97.3%, which I think the major contribution to the employment. I think that's why government are so concerned with SME. That's why I think in this budget, a large amount of money was allocated to that. And then the budget been distributed to like other activities. For example, the special support for SMEs. Women, support for women, Bumi Putra, and of course industry like tourism industries, etc. That's why I think the emphasis was given so much. I think government is doing the good job. I think both the SME communities and the government are working, I think, closely towards this budget. The way I see it, because they put a large sum of money and a special budgets allocated for recovery purposes. So more than 6,000 SMEs in Malaysia. Yeah? Many. I think the numbers maybe increase after the I think post pandemic, because now during the pandemic, a lot of SMEs cannot operate. But as like Pan Sherry said just now, there are other type of businesses emerge, like gig economy, gig entrepreneurs. But I remember she said that the employability in the gig entrepreneurs are not accounted for in the employment accounting in Malaysia. Not yet, maybe later. Okay, next. All right, next please. So this is the establishment. This is the latest one. Sorry, this is updated data. So the latest one is the numbers are more than 97, 98.5 actually. And the service industry is still the major contribution, major source and employability, employment in our economy. I think this is so important that the government need to intervene. The government intervention is still very much relevant in this SME operation, SME dalam industry, small and medium enterprises. Okay, very important. Although we can see that some are not doing very well, but this is a major source of employability, and also the major source of value chain, creation of value chain, creating multiplier in the economy, the creation of multiplier, creation of new organization with the digital technology, the new SME emerges, creation of new source of supply, creating new market. I think the market need to be expanded geographically, demographically, maybe internationally. This is the way forward to expand the SME's operation, and also the creation. This is part of the I borrow Schumpeter words. The creation the creation of destructive creation. This is part of creative destruction. So the SMEs need to be innovative, take risks, to take risks and need to be upgrade skills and also technology and knowledge. Okay, so we see here services are still the major contribution. This is the most affected sector in the SMEs, especially in the tourism industry. Okay, next. Okay, this is the establishment. Yeah, sorry, this is I pick up from SME Corp data. Yeah? This is because during that time I was one of the advisory board in the entrepreneurship advisory board at SME Corp. So it's important in terms of GDP, but you see here, you see the GDP contribution. You look at establishment 97%, but GDP contribution only 32%. Huge gap, yeah, huge gap. So this is the thing that need to be closed. The gap need to be closed. In the country like Korea, for example, Korean was at par with us many years ago, but now they are ahead. Their SME contribution to GDP is more than 60%. So we should move toward that direction. I think the post-pandemic strategy, government are moving toward that direction. But I don't think we can achieve up to 60%. We can achieve about 40%. It's very good enough. It takes time to reach to the level of maybe 60%. But our definition might be changed later on, because the reason for definition, I think the main reason for definition is to provide support system. We are the country, Malaysia is the country which has the most support agencies for SMEs. We have 63 agencies, 13 ministries supporting SMEs. Sometimes overlapping, the role of supporting overlap. Those are the things that need to be looked into, so that the process of supporting the SME will be more efficient. And it created 59% of employment. I think this, yeah, although the establishment is 97, but here there is a gap between GDP and gap between employment. Export market is considered still very low. But in the second industrial master plan, the focus, that was the best time for me. This was the best time of SME development in Malaysia in the 90s, early 90s, because in the second industrial master plan, government put emphasis on the increasing the value add to increase the value add in the productivity of SME, and to establish a net relationship between large industry and small industries, because during the industrial policy, government established a lot of large industry, and with that, I think the SME will spring. Most SME will be created to support the large industry, to provide parts and components. Jadi parts and component to the industry become subcontractors. I think that's one of the best policy in the second industrial master plan, that the large company being created in order to create more small industries. Like Telecom Malaysia, they have a lot of subcontractors, TNB, a lot of GLE, GLC, and also private large industries in Malaysia. Okay, next. I think this is the 2020 data. You see, look here, the performance are increasing from 30% GDP to 37%, but the target for 2020 is only 41%. I think we have not achieved that because of the pandemic. I think post-pandemic, I think the strategy that has been developed will be triggered toward that, toward increasing the GDP. All other things like export target 23%, share of employability still maintained, but increase from 2020 and to be increased to 65%, which is I think good. Okay, and then all other things. So I think the strategy according to the budget, I look at the budget here, apart from additional fund, 2 billion as a relief for as a relief recovery facility. I think the strategy was to move towards the what was planned prior to pandemic. It was based on the prior pandemic strategic plan, because it's well planned. I know that I was with CEO of SME Corp. We went to UK together, and we went to New York together, to present this plan to the at the Westminster at that time, during the what we call the SME conference, and also this one was also highlighted in the conference at the United Nations, 2016. I was there together with the CEO of SME Corp. I think everybody praised us. Other countries, like even Korea was happy what we are doing at that time. We look at our plan, but people say no matter how good the plan is, we cannot execute it right. It won't achieve the objective. But with the pandemic outbreak, so this plan is not that cannot be executed as planned. Okay, so I think the strategy would be to go back to the original plan prior to pandemic. Okay, next. Okay, next, please. Okay, this is and then there need to be a public-private partnership need to be enhanced. Innovation because of the technology now, IR 4.0, etc. And then outcome-based, etc. This is the master plan for the new approach in the SME development, especially the post-pandemic. Okay, next. So these are the SME development framework for innovation-led, productivity-driven. So this.
Okay, this is the framework.
Yes, it's a framework. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Prof, you have at least 2 minutes.
2 minutes. Okay, let's we
can
share
open
this later on. This is a strategic plan, action plan goal for the plan. I think the government will refocus on this post-pandemic. Next, please. Okay, this is some of the priority that should be given. I think must need to be given. Okay, 80% of SME in Malaysia, micro enterprises. I think micro need to be upgraded to small and small to medium, etc. So that the whole contribution to the employability, employment, and other things in the economic value chain and in the creating multipliers in the economy. Creating economic multiplier. Okay, next. Okay. All right, this is a gap, one thing lead gap that need to be this is projected on 8.7 growth, but if our SME growth now is much less than this, so maybe the ability to achieve the quantum leap may be a longer time. So GDP, okay, the employability, etc. This is a target for 2020. I think they are still. I think the strategy is to work on this, to push to the higher to the level of GDP, SME contribution to the whole economy. Okay, next. Cepat pasal time dah late ada. Okay, I think we can look at it. This is some incorporated operating mechanism, the regulation. I think Dr. Sharin mentioned about regulation, etc. Need to be improving delivery system, institutionalization of consulting machinery, etc. I think our SMEs, our operator need to be trained more on the skill training, knowledge-based training, technological know-how, etc. Okay, next. Okay, this is 2020, 14.2 billion, 2 billion recovery. I mentioned it already. Okay, next. This is a support for SMEs in the budget. Look at the budget. I see this is okay. Okay, we can share this later on. Apa ni, Dr. Muhammad to the participants. So, okay, trader fund. There are many other funds. The women fund, the special fund for women, SME recovery fund. Banyak yang breakdown di tourism industry special fund, etc. Art and culture fund, aerospace, agriculture, etc. Okay, next. Okay, this is the mechanism. The mechanism that I think they will use this method, intersectorial mechanism structure. Okay, this is promotion and funding. Okay, next. Yeah, the government and the private sector linkage need to be upgraded in order to achieve faster recovery. Large firm, relationship with large firm SME, because many SMEs, good SMEs are manufacturing based that link to the large industry, especially become the supplier of parts and components, subcontracting job. Okay, next. Okay, this is a private sector. Okay.
What's to
I
be
think
done?
we can share it later because we are running out of time. So next, please, just to show to the audience.
Yes.
Yes, SME Master Plan. Okay, this is 4 goals to increase business formation, increase labor productivity, high growth firm, to expand the high growth innovative firm. So that it related to productivity and intensify the formalization. Banyak ya small micro enterprise kita ni tak register pun. Tak ada dalam not even in the SME corp-nya apa ni dia panggil yang registration tu. Jadi susah lah, difficult for the government to support. But be an SME or micro enterprise, the support still needed. Government need to support. I think government intervention is very, very important. Even a country like America, which is a champion of capitalist economy, but they still support the small industry under the small and medium administration, small and medium administration dekat White House. Well, although they are champion capitalists, but they still supporting is like a capitalistic, not like a socialist economy, but there are still element of socialism in the American economy. Okay, next. All right, this is some of the activities. So I was personally involved in this. Prof. Hassan, I think you are aware of this. We are involved in SME University, SME University program, which is a very successful program. Those are some of the activities that have been done. I think should be continued and been enhanced. Okay, next. Banyak masa ni. All right. I think this is on the mega trend. So we can share this, Mr. Dr. Muhammad.
Okay. Yes.
Are we running out of time?
Yes, we have.
Okay.
For to open the
so
questions.
I must. Okay, never mind. Take note of these slides, and then we share. No problem. And if any question, we can discuss later. Okay, thank you. Ada lagi? I think.
Okay. We have. I think I've chosen one good question. Even though we have several.
I think that's all. That's all the slides.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have only 1 minute, so hopefully Prof can answer within 1 minute. Okay. As you mentioned just now, there are a lot of agencies that can support SMEs.
Yeah.
So for the outcome of the initiative from these agencies, how do they measure the impact or the outcome of the initiative or the planning that has been implemented?
Okay, Dr. Muhammad, we did a study. I did a study many years ago. Okay.
Yes.
We did a study many years ago. I think kita cari semua agensi yang ada di Malaysia ni. yang semua ministry education, semua ministry ada 30 ministries at that time. So we put a matrix, so we see a lot of a support system. Even all ministry jump into this. Semua ministry, you look at semua ministry kan ada dia punya agency yang to support, yang to help to support the according entrepreneurs or small and medium operators, especially the micro one. Banyak sangat ya. 63 sebenarnya ya yang recorded lah. Bila saya bagi tahu Datuk Pa masa dia menteri MITI terkejut dia. Kata yes, this is true.
So they have their own technique to measure the impact.
Dia ada dia punya sendiri, tapi I was not happy. And then we did a follow up study. We discovered the outreach program was not that good. Not many people know. Yeah, that's another problem, another issue. I did a study with USM at that time with Pusat Pendidikan Dasar Polisi, the USM. Under USM at that time, we discovered that there are a lot of support system that provided by government does not reach the audience. So I have that report. Based on that report, my study at that time, I was studying, not my three of us. I was a leader at that time, a project leader.
Okay, thank you.
So the government established INSCAN, Institute Usahawan Negara. Just tujuan nak consolidate. Okay, I can take more question later. Right. Thank you.
Okay. I will keep the question. Okay, thank you for everyone for contributing for the questions. So now we have to end. We have another topic, interesting topic with our next speaker. Okay, and then it is actually my pleasure to welcome our Vice Chancellor, Professor Dato' Dr. Assabeyo Haji Osman, to deliver his speech titled Education and Higher Education Transformation. It is my pleasure to welcome Yang Berbahagia Dato'.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Can hear me?
Okay, good.
Okay, so thank you very much, Dr. Zamari and dear friends who are here today to have an informal discussion on the budget 2020. And some areas which we have identified. Thank you for spending your Sunday, valuable Sunday, to be here with us. Yeah. So my topic today is looking at education and higher education. Dr. Sheikh will also touch on education, independent discussion. So we will focus on the budget and also some of the issues that regard to budget of 2020. So what we have, for example, in our budget for this year is an allocation, or for next year is an allocation of 322.1 billion. Okay? Let me give an overview of this. Out of this, the operational expenditure OE, or perbelanjaan mengurus, is about 180 billion, and development expenditure, or DE, is about 140 billion. You can see that of the whole chunk, 26% is on emolument to public servants. Yeah. 13% to pay off debts, 9.1% is services dan supplies, perkhidmatan bekalan, and pensions is 8.5%. On the development side, the economic sector gets 12.1%, COVID is 6.9%, social is about 6.8%, others is Subsidy is about 5.2%. I think in the second in panel discussions later, this is the element that probably we are looking at in terms of subsidy and also social assistance. Security is 2.7%, pemberian dan serahan kepada kerajaan negeri 2.4%, and administration. So you can see that this is an overview of the budget, and if you convert those percentages, you will get the how much is being spent on the overall Malaysian. So perkhidmatan bayar hutang ni tinggi juga dia, is about 13%, the same percentages that we are looking at looking at the economic sector development. For the sectors that I'm looking at, the education and higher education, there's a total of 67.1 billion allocated, but for the Ministry of Education and Ministry of Higher Education. And the pertinence point for education, for example, there's about 450 million to assistance given for bantuan awal persekolahan. Bear in mind, this 450 million coming from the government to give for each students, which is about 3 million. But maybe not all will be eligible. My data shows that there are about 4.6 million students in the primary and secondary school. Then maintenance is about 1 billion, going 900 million to 10,000 schools, tahfiz 140 million, sekolah kebangsaan Cina and Tamil is about 120 million, upgrading naik taraf sekolah daif 746 million, 433 projects. This is a very important aspect of education management in Malaysia, where we are spending about 1.8 billion for maintaining assets of the school system. Then you have special education, also to give 400 million to ensure of food assistance and also bekalan susu harian to the poor. And the government give $100 each to each teacher, which is about 400,000 for assistance or for device assistance. So this is overview out of 52 billion. This is some of the big ticket item apart from emolument. For Ministry of Higher Education, I'll come to this later. The Ministry of Higher Education allocation is 14.5 billion. Operational expenditure is 11.5, and 3 billion is development expenditure. Of this, these are some of the items that is coming in. Insentif majikan yang menggaji perantis, galakkan cukai, tax insentif, perkhidmatan klinik bergerak oleh university, hospitals, mempergiatkan aktiviti pendidikan, there's 400 million there and 295 million there. Memperkasa bidang, I will repeat this later, there's about 6 billion with 200 million for SLDN. Program pemulihan dalam komuniti, no budget, but there was a mention of USM there. Projek selenggara baik pulih dan infrastruktur pelaratan rusang is 2.9 billion. This is also showing the government is concentrating on maintaining the assets, and also naik taraf access MyRent, which with the assistance of the ministry at 6.7 million. So what is happening between this? There is also initiative Perantis Siswa that will be given $150 each for each No, this is B40 for 600,000. They're supposed to give the device assistant, perlanjutan potongan cukai, program e-start for students. They call it e-starts, but they're giving $150 for each student so that they can buy some items. If you remember, this started quite long time ago to assist IPT students to buy books. Then this is Anak Bumi Putra, 6.6 billion. Elon Pelajar Industry is suggested to be 900 million. I'm not sure whether there is an allocation, but I don't think so. This is what is suggested. Focus balik. Also, there's for PTPTN, there's a discount as announced in budget 2022 if they settle it early to benefit about 1.6 million borrowers with a 15% discount if they can settle the loan for those who wish to settle it, and a 12% discount for those who settle at 50% loan. In this economic climate, I'm not sure how many can take this offer. Of course, we said we also know that it's already announced that 40.5 billion set aside for research. Untuk Myran will receive 67 million to upgrade the Myran network in higher education institution. As I told you just now, is the incentive to help the students going for industrial training. The government is encouraging, not giving, encouraging private sector to pay. There's also an extension of tax incentives for structured industrial training program and double tax deduction to companies. 423 million from MOSTI and education to do research and development. Another 229 million to public universities to do research and innovation with industry. So there's about 700 million overall from last year. There's also a summary, one of the mainstream media, of what the students will get. The student, as I said just now, will get $150 free e-wallets. JPA scholarships has been reduced from 950 million to 939 million for 2022, which means there will be less students will be getting. B40, as we said, provide tablets to every B40 students, estimated to be 600,000. That's quite a hefty sum because the number of students higher education institution about 1.2 million. So that we are talking about 60% of the students to be able to get the tablets. Let's see how it's rolled out. For the medical doctors, the government has promised contracts for 10,000 medical, dental, and pharmaceutical officers for a maximum of 4 years, following their 2-year mandatory service. This is also a big commitment on the government, and the government also promised a specialist program allocation of next year of 100 million. Okay, then there's an incentive for employer. The government is hopefully giving a tax for incentive for employer to provide extra who actually hire apprentices after graduation from $800 to $900 per month. And the esports industry, I'm sure this is from the Ministry of Sports. There's 20 million allocated to develop esports, including 5 million to establish a drone sports center of excellence. So any university who likes to come to Ministry of Sports probably can put proposal to get this agent. Strengthening TVET education, 6.6 billion. I think as in SME, as what was mentioned by Prof. Aziz, In TVET industry, there's many ministries in charge of TVET industry. And my last data that I have is there's about 1,200 institutions involved in TVET industry in Malaysia, more than the higher education institutions. For Bumiputra education, there's 6.6 billion allocated to Bumiputra institution, for which is involved education loan, upgrading of certificate program to diploma, producing professionals in the field of medicine, all this under MARA, UITM, and also Yayasan Peneraju. I just want to bring this on up. Maybe Sherin and Dato' Aziz can look at it. The kajian by, I think this is by per case, by one organization that was published in Metro. The penghantar makanan, food deliveries, 94% is Malay. 70,000 of them actually is the P-hailing services. During PKP1, there's 51%, PKP2, 20%, and PKP3. And this is in Lembah Kelang, and Teraju did this. Why they do 43% depends this as pendapatan utama, 77% pendapatan pertambahan, latar belakang up to sekolah menengah is 72%, secondary school. 27% have first degree, and 1% is postgraduate. And if they are involved in an accident, 86% doesn't do. So you can see that in the gig of just food delivery alone, there's about 70,000 people. And this is one of the problems. Now we identify that many of the young ones doesn't want to go to the higher education institution and enter in the job market, especially in this gig economy. So in conclusion, I would welcome questions. These are some of the issues that is there. We are not sure whether or not this will actually be solved by the budget 2022, which I don't think so all will cover. But there are always a belief that budget, an annual budget can solve a lot of problems. But I've shown overview just now. There's only so many percent of the budget that is probably allocated to this kind of thing. So the issues includes digital agenda and gaps that is around for both education, particularly in the schools, and also higher education. There's issue on maintenance of assets and equipment of the government in the various public institutions. There are issues of changes in academic calendar year, which now will end for the schools in March. So therefore, the next batch that will come into the university will probably come in October or November or probably later. An average 52 billion of budget means that the government spend about 11,000 per child per year in schools, with 4.63 million school population, roughly. This is, I think it's 2020 figure. Public education is actually a social goods and social enterprise. There is issues about pandemic and endemic management around in schools and also in institutions. There's a lot of problems with learning formal at PDPR and how informal learning can actually assist the children. Some people are actually saying that why don't now we try to look at 4 days schooling so that the teacher can concentrate more in the preparation for the school children, and the school children can actually have more of the time to actually explore creativity. Another issue is more specifically for higher education. is online learning and investment that has been done by private higher education. And as I said just now, there's indication of youth entering direct to job market. As shown, there is a 70,000 e-hailing delivery guys, in the job market at the moment. Among the private higher education institution, business recovery is a main agenda because of the loss of the international students and also the loss to the youth entering the direct to job market. Overall, in public education institution, if we take the number of students in public education institution at 650,000, with 14 billion allocation, the government is spending about 22,000 per student per year. Many students pay about 5 to 10% of fees per year, but there are a lot of students also being assisted, free tuitions, and also some allowances in those. So therefore, for higher education institution, the issue about dropouts, there are also some issues with leaderships, and definitely there's issue with employability and employment. So overall, that's an overview of the education and higher education budget. Dr. Sheikh will take and deep dive this into in the panel discussion. So I will stop here, Dr. Zamari, and take questions as it can, as much as I can do. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay. Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you so much, Doctor, for the valuable insight for the education budget, especially for the higher education. And then actually we have to add just a few minutes, and then actually this is the time to receive the questions. There is a few views from the participants, especially from the panels, and then I can pick maybe one question first. This is for the English medium school. This question is: should we adopt English medium school again to elevate our English proficiency, which we are lacking among our students? What do you think about this method?
Well, private higher education now is basically English stream. The question is how far you want to go back for the secondary school so that their fluency in English is most important. I believe now if students are not fluent in English, they will not be able to access the knowledge, as much knowledge as they could and would if they are more fluent in English. There's a lot of program at the school level, and I think Sarawak is trying to work on English medium. There are quite a few international schools which actually offer the English medium. Our problem is actually the 4.6 million school children. The higher percentage will be disadvantaged by introducing the English medium. But a very focused effort must be made actually to improve English fluency in various schools. Again, I think with the technology and also digital era, the accessibility to English-based media is a tool that has not been utilized a lot in actually giving the children more access and also increasing their fluency. So I think going for an English medium is probably very conventional in approach. I think we should not be talking about the medium of schools now, but we should talking about the fluency and the ability of our children to know more than one language. Thank you.
Okay, one question, Dato. Especially for the higher education budget allocated for, if I'm not mistaken, 14.5 billion for this year, for next year. So do you have any idea how much the budget will be trickled down to the private university?
Except for the tax the opportunity, directly none, except for the tax opportunity. But indirectly, PTPTN is a source of funding for private higher education institutions. So therefore, if the students come in and they take PTPTN, so that will be a good. So usually, private education institution PTPTN source of funding will be between 30 to maybe 60% of the funding. And secondly, the accessibility to research, grant now is open to both public and private, but the rate of success is not high among the private higher education institutions because the teaching duties in private education institution is quite heavy there. So that's why I said my summary just now, government spent about 22,000 in public institutions for this budget, and the budget 2022 remains constant with 2021 budget, which actually we should thank the government for ensuring that the budget remain constant. Of course, taking into account of inflation is actually down.
Okay. Well, so I think there is just a few opinions and views from the participants, and then just if I'm not mistaken, for the budget for the higher education, it is just slightly increased in terms of maybe for the B40 allocation for the gadget, if I'm not mistaken, worth 400 million. So that's considered,
I think there was an allocation about for this apart from the gadget. There is also allocation that is given for the COVID, but actually this is for the public institution. But generally, I can see that even there has been allocation for maintenance, and I hope the maintenance is well distributed, because we know that maintenance of the assets and equipment is very important now, especially, and when about a year or more, there's no activity on the laboratory, not much, a lot of the building is not being used and all that. So it's very important that the government actually give this allocation so that it is actually good to maintain that at a higher level.
Okay. So thank you so much.
Any questions later can ask Dr. Sheikh Malik for education. Thank you.
Okay. Again, thank you for your contributing for the questions, and then I'd like to thank Datuk, Professor Datuk, Dr. Omar or Haji Osman for delivering his speech. And then I think that's all for the first session. Okay, as a saying goes, to every beginning there is an ending, and now the session 1 has come to its end. Once again, thank you for everyone okay, with your presents for this first session. And then I'm truly appreciate it. For this time being, okay, I end my duty as a moderator, okay, for the first session for today's event. And then maybe I will hand to Dr. Amizatul Hawa. So at the end, I just want to say thank you so much for having me as well. And thank you to all the speakers for the first session. Okay, wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you so much, Dr. Zamhari, and also all the speakers for the very interesting presentation just now. So by the first session, we have a few discussion on the SMEs, and then we have also education budgets, and also for the entrepreneurship gig. Okay, gig entrepreneurship. So thank you so much for the presentation. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we will proceed to the next session, which is session 2. We have a bit discussions on the next topic. Okay, before that, let me introduce our next moderator, which is Prof. Dr. Muhammad Hassan Muhammad Osman. Okay, Prof. Dr. Muhammad Hassan Muhammad Osman is currently a professor and a dean graduate school at UNITA International University. He graduated with a diploma in actuarial science from UiTM Shah Alam, and also in actuarial science from the University, and then master in actuarial science from University of Nebraska Lincoln, and also he also have a PhD in business management from the Loughborough University. Okay, currently his current research interests include leadership, entrepreneurship, social entrepreneurship, and strategic thinking. Okay, Dr. Prof. Hassan also have conducted various training on leadership, entrepreneurship, managing social entrepreneurship, industry 4.0, and strategic planning. So without further ado, I would like to call Prof. Hassan to lead the session 2. Prof. Hassan.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Siti Hawa, for the introduction. And also, selamat pagi semua. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I see quite a number of faces that I know. Datuk Anwali pun ada dalam ni. Of course, Datuk Aziz Latif, our brother Khairuddin Sudarmin, how are you? Macam Taliban ya tengok. sorry. Dan juga semua yang ada sini ya, Datuk Umar Usman, the Vice Chancellor of DRB-HICOM University. Normally pagi-pagi macam ni saya pergi cycling. I'm due for cycling ke Olah Lempit, about 54 kilometers from here. No, sorry, pergi balik 54 kilometers, tapi kena batal lah. And I asked my team to go without me. Okay, basically we have quite an interesting discussion earlier by four speakers, and for our panel discussion pagi ni we have also 4 panel members from diverse background, and we have 3 from the universities and 1 from the practitioner. Basically, I will introduce everyone when before they start giving their talk or suggestion or discussion, and then I don't know, because by the look of the questions coming in from the earlier session, there seems to be a lot of questions. So I would like to instead of giving 20 minutes to everyone, will the 4 of you agree that we reduce it to 15 minutes and give 10 minutes for question and answers? If you don't mind, is that okay with the panel speaker? Or else we stick to the original suggestion of 20 presentation, 5-minute Q&A. I think it will be too short for Q&A. Kalau tak ada respon, I think I would like to proceed with the 50 minutes presentation. Inshallah, our presentation today will focus on budget 2020 and the way forward for national recovery. Our first speaker will be, our first panel will be our good Mr. Ifran Tarmizi. He is the CEO of Global Sadaqah. And his specialization is charity crowdfunding. That should be very interesting because I've worked with quite a number of crowdfunders before this with my NGO. So it should be very interesting to hear what he has to say on fintech in Waqaf, Zakat and Sadaqah as a support mechanism for keluarga Malaysia in the endemic era. So I will remind each speakers after the 10 minutes, I will just remind them that they have 5 more minutes. So with that, I would like to call upon Mr. Ifran to begin his panel discussion. Silakan.
Thank you, Dr. Hassan. Just want to confirm that everyone can hear me?
Yeah,
Clear?
loud and clear.
Okay. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, ma'ba'd. Morning and assalamu alaikum. First, thank you to DRB-HICOM University of Automotive Malaysia and Dr. Professor Osman for inviting me to this discussion, and Encik Badardin actually for recommending me. You know, I'm very honored to be among such great speakers as I myself. Sorry, I'm hearing my own echo. Mungkin kena mute. I myself am not an expert, but I hope I'll be able to add some value to our discussion today, inshallah. So, as we have observed, there's been some amount of aid allocated to those in need within our community, and alhamdulillah, any amount is always good. You know, whether 500 ringgit, 1,000 ringgit, to some it might be you know, a bit too little, but for those in need, and I'm sure even Dr. Hassan, since he's very close to the NGOs, it could literally be a lifesaver for them. Apologize, Dr. Hassan, I think your microphone is still on. I can hear my echo. Maaf. If I'm not mistaken, ada dengar suara. Okay. So yes, there's only so much the government can give, and there are now more people below the poverty line. In fact, more have entered the B40 category. So this is where, I mean, in addition to what we've seen in the budget, this is where I see NGOs have an important role to play to complement the aid by the government. So for example, this is from my little experience also back then heading an NGO. With 50 ringgit, most of us here will finish it within a day. In fact, perhaps even within one meal. But I've seen when an NGO or any entity for that matter, with that same amount, with the ability to buy in mass, direct from a supplier, for example, I've seen the same 50 ringgit enough to support a family for 2 weeks or even a month. But, you know, the current issue, and I'm sure Dr. Hassan, maybe, you know, later I'd like to hear your experience too. Most NGOs now, they face the issue of the ability to raise funds locally. And due to many factors, donor fatigue. We've been going through this pandemic for the past 2 years. Everybody's asking for donations, you know, from everyone in Malaysia. So that there is some sort of fatigue going on within the country. However, there is strong potential for tapping into communities abroad to support our local communities. And, you know, as the topic says. So we are always talking about FDIs, investments from international investors, but we need to also tap into these countries for social finance too. So this is where fintech comes into play. We need to connect our impactful projects in Malaysia to supporters around the world. If someone is in Europe, we need, you know, for them to be able to donate in euros. If they're in Singapore, for them to be able to donate in Singapore dollars. So the key factor is to incorporate technology and making it simple. Right. So in addition to that, for those who have been following the trend of cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, Ethereum has hit an all-time high recently. And I'm not going to the Sharia discussion. There's a separate discussion. I'll leave it to other experts. But we can't deny there's huge potential for these investors to support our community. And I'm just citing some examples that happened recently. One individual donated about 0.5 Ethereum, which is about equivalent to 9,000 ringgit. It went to a charitable social finance project. A few months ago, someone donated 0.15 Bitcoin, which is equivalent to 30,000 ringgit. And that's one individual. So anyway, like I said, I'm not going into the Sharia discussion of the permissibility of cryptocurrencies, but anyway, we'll take that discussion on a separate day. So anyway, in addition to that, we need to create awareness and enable technology for these investors to pay even zakah on their cryptos. That's also another discussion, but I'm just talking about the tech enabling them to channel their investments. So, excuse me. Now, in addition to that, also in the fintech space, the role of super apps. You know, I believe most of us, and also in line with the previous topics on the whole gig industry, most of us have smartphones and we use all sorts of apps every day to order food, make payments, check solar time. So we need to be visible in these super apps for people to have the ability to donate, to support. in addition to whatever aid that's been given out today. So, you all know, we just had our discounts on Singles Day, 11 November. There should be a prompt. Congratulations on your savings of X amount. Would you like to support our B40 community with that savings? That is a potential that they have not really tapped into. Another fintech potential. We know in our history, the potential of Waqf. It has benefited communities around the world up till today. So likewise, in Malaysia, there are many majalis, state bodies where they are trustee of Waqf and state land. But some of these lands remain underdeveloped due to lack of funds. So with fintech, this is where we can enable and couple charity and at the same time, crowdfunding for investors to come together to be the contributor of funds. For the investors, perhaps into the equity of a PropCo, OpCo company, for the land to develop a building, to run a business, and with some element of returns in the future. For the donors, they donate for the sake of akhirah. So that's some of the ideas I think we can incorporate in fintech. In addition to giving out aid, we also need to have our recipients to break out of this cycle. As they say, we need to turn receivers to givers. We need to turn asnaf to zakah givers. In fact, I would like to make an additional dua. I want the B40s not just to become zakah givers, but that they are also able to go for Hajj, which requires a certain amount of wealth. So anyway, long story short, we need to teach them to fish as opposed to just giving out aid. I do agree, it does help. Whatever, 500, 100 ringgit, 50 ringgit, it helps, but we need to break them out of the cycle by teaching them to fish. So in addition to straightforward charity, we need to tap into the potential of Qard Hasan, where I would also like to call it sustainable charity. As we know, it's an interest-free loan, which we hope it will help to boost their livelihood for a longer impact, but also gives them that dignity that when they repay, they are paying it forward towards the next beneficiaries. So the B40, in addition to what I just mentioned, they face a challenge where they don't have access to traditional financial products because they don't have credit history. Most of us here, we have our CCRIS, CTOS, etc. But for them, without credit history, they can't apply for a financial product. But in order for them to get credit history, they need to apply for a financial product. So it's a catch-22 for them, for most of them. So this is where, incorporating fintech, we need to develop an alternative credit scoring method for these individuals. So imagine an app where the B40 can apply for a Qard Hasan, or you want to call it sustainable charity. You say pay it forward. Within the app, also imagine there is some data collected to build their credit history. Within the app, it links them to digital commerce platform where they are trained to manage their own digital store, their digital business, to sell products with high margins and success. And when they graduate, they have developed new skills and to hopefully expand their business. At the same time, they now have credit history, which we hope will slowly ease them into the traditional products that they might require. And at the same time, imagine this app to have elements of artificial intelligence and machine learning to help assist in the eligibility of the applicant upon applying for this Qard Hasan. So all, in short, not to make my discussion too long, as Dr. Hassan said, let's open more to Q&A. Alhamdulillah, the government has provided some needed aid, but there's still a strong role for NGOs to complement. But we need to move forward and we need to expand by incorporating technology, fintech, whatever you can call it, into this sector. So I think with that, I will just end my points. Thank you, Dr. Hassan, and I'll send it, give it back to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Pan. I forgot to ask, where are you from? Singapore or you're from Malaysia?
Orang KL.
Oh, okay, sorry. I used to work with another crowdfunder from Singapore.
Which one, if you don't mind me asking? Because I'm quite curious.
I forgot the name, about 2-3 years back.
Okay, so now we can work for Global Sedekah, inshallah.
Yeah, all right, okay, that's good. In the sense that if there is no question, we proceed and we open the question later on, right?
Sure,
we collect the question. All right, good. This is very interesting because I am also in social entrepreneurship, and we see that on the other continent is social enterprise, in the middle is social enterprise, one continent is NGO, the other continent is the private businesses. So basically, this is quite interesting. And we hope we keep the question later. And everyone, if you have any question, please type in the chat, or you can ask when we open for discussion. All right. Okay, if you need to ask any question, please direct them to whom. Okay. All right. Okay. Now.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you, Infran. Can we go to the next speaker, which is on social equity? As Professor Dr. Azim Fazwan Ahmad Farouk from USM, who happens to be my junior at Penang Preschool. Dr. Azwan Azim is he holds a bachelor BA in political science from DePaul University, MA in PhD in political science from University of Malaya. And currently he is a director of Center for Policy Research and International Studies, USM. He also writes opinion pieces that appear in mainstream newspaper as well as online news portal. All right, and he has led a number of leading research. And with that, I would like to call upon Dr. Azim to present his case. Dr. Azim, you're given 15 minutes, silakan.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Professor Hassan, as the moderator. Before I proceed any further, I would like to thank Yang Berbahagia Professor Dato' Dr. Omar Osman for having me in this program. Before I begin, I would like to state clearly at the outset that I am not an economist by training. I'm a political scientist, but I do a bit of work in political economy. I think before we delve into the question or the concept of social equity, we need to bear in mind that there is a distinction between equity and wealth creation. So when we talk about equity, we are talking about what the population deserves in relation to national wealth. We are not talking about wealth creation per se. We are talking about equity in terms of how the national income is distributed to the various groups in society. I think we have to contextualize our 2022 budget within a bigger context. So we need to look at what is happening globally in order for us to appreciate the magnitude of our budget that is the biggest to date. I think we need to somehow understand that we are living at a time when in many societies, people are increasingly disappointed by the economic and the political system. This is despite the huge gains in material progress the world has seen in the last 50 years. Survey data has find that 4 out of 5 people believe the system is not working for them, especially in the US, Europe, China, and also various parts of the developing world. In many advanced countries, the majority no longer believe their children will be better off than they are. In the developing world, aspirations for education, healthcare, and jobs are often well ahead of society's ability to deliver them. I think we need to contextualize what I've said with regard to what is happening globally in the context of what is happening in Malaysia, especially in this era of in this pandemic era. I think we need to understand that the COVID-19 situation has somehow affected people across the board. For example, 6 million of our working population and also those who are in businesses has less than 10,000 ringgit in their EPF. 750,000 people are unemployed, or 4.6% of the population. 5.6% live in absolute poverty. average graduate starting salary is 2.4 thousand ringgit. Cost of living in Kuala Lumpur, for example, is 3,200 ringgit per person, and 140,000 people lost their jobs during the pandemic. So this is the extent to which the pandemic has affected various groups in Malaysia. And I think as an instrument, the budget aims to redistribute income, but I think the government is also limited to what it can do. And I think this is reflected in the amount that is given to 400,000 households that are actually affected by this pandemic. And the amount allocated for this 400,000 households is 2.4 billion. So this is somehow reflected in how the government can actually spend in terms of cash being transferred to the households that are in need. So I think the extent to which the government can actually contribute is very much limited by public finance, because the government revenue has gone down. A lot of people are not able to contribute in terms of taxation, and there is little that the government can do to actually help the various groups that are actually affected by the pandemic. Another important dimension that we need to consider with regard to the national budget is the level of inequality in Malaysia. When we talk about equity, we need to somehow measure the level of inequality that exists in our society. So when it comes to gross income, the income inequality in Malaysia has gone up. This is the data from 2019, with the Gini coefficient value increasing from 0.399 in 2016 to 0.407 in 2019. I do believe that this figure will go up for the data in 2020 because of the pandemic. So generally speaking, we would somehow expect that the level of social and economic inequality in Malaysia will definitely be wider between the top 10% or the T20 and also the bottom 40%, with people who are currently in the middle. The M40 will be affected by what happened in the last 2 years. They will probably be going down the social ladder in terms of their income. And I think we have to somehow use these figures and also this scenario in discussing about the budget. I think the budget, although it is huge, the biggest to date, but will the budget be able to address the various sectors, the issues that are faced by the various groups in society, especially those who are in the M and B40 categories? Will cash transfers to these groups be enough to ameliorate, to somehow remedy the current situation that they are in, or there should be more, or the government should do more in terms of trying to address this issue? I think these are questions that have not been addressed properly by budget 2022. Even though budget 2022 is actually continuing what was actually done in 2021 when the crisis was at its worst. But generally speaking, I do feel that cash transfers and also the various programs that are undertaken by the government will not be able to solve this problem in the near term. Maybe more needs to be done in terms of reskilling and upskilling the people who are in the B40 and M40 categories. I think some allocation has been given for that in the budget in terms of tax relief to encourage individuals to upskill. So I think these are some measures that the government can undertake to somehow remedy the shortfall of what is currently happening in our society. But I think COVID-19 has actually shown the extent to which the gaps between the have and have not in Malaysia has actually widened. This is demonstrated in how B40 families are struggling to have their kids, following classes online. Internet access is also another major issue that affects the lower income group. And I think the government, through the budget on its own, will not be able to solve this problem, because the budget is actually a short-term instrument. And I think the bigger document that we need to look at is RMK 12 in this context. So what is the programs and also policies that will be developed in RMK 12 to address the issue of inequality? So this is something that we need to look deeper, because I do feel that the budget on its own will not be able to change the problems that we face today. More so with, when we look at the budget deficit is at 6% of the GDP. It is a deficit budget. And the government debt stands at 63.3% of the GDP. So public finance, if we look at it from the perspective of public finance, all is not well. Government revenue is down, government debt is up, and also, of course, it is a deficit budget, and how the government finance the deficit is another kettle of fish altogether. And this is the background in which we are moving forward for Malaysia. And it's not a healthy outlook for the economy. And of course, I think we are also not able to attract foreign direct investment as we used to. And this will be reflected in how the job market operates in the coming years.
You have 5 more minutes.
Okay, so I think I will wrap up. I think I will end by saying that, of course, the budget 2021 and 2022 try to remedy whatever shortcomings that the market has created, mainly due to the pandemic. But I think government expenditure alone will not solve the problem that we face in terms of inequality that exists in Malaysia. I think the only data that I have up to date in terms of how income is distributed in Malaysia is based on a 2002 study by Khazanah Research Institute that actually indicates that the top 10% earners in this country controls about 44% of the wealth. So I think that shows the extent of inequality that exists in Malaysia. And I think the issue of inequality has to be addressed seriously by the government if Malaysia wants to move forward as a progressive society. Otherwise, I think there will emerge a group in Malaysia that is considered as the underclass. This is becoming a reality, especially among the urban poor. And this issue has to be addressed by the government in the coming years. Because if we are to live with this underclass, I think there will be a lot more problems that exist in our society. And this underclass is becoming a reality. It is being actually amplified by COVID-19. And I think the issue that emerges during the last 2 years have to do with the fact that this underclass is actually struggling, both at the in the urban areas as well as in the rural areas, and instruments or policy initiatives have to develop to address this issue if we are to move forward as a progressive society. So with that, I end my discussion this morning. Thank you very much, Professor Hassan.
Thank you, Dr. Azim. On the dot. Right. Okay. This is very interesting. Dr. Azim raised the issues on the pandemic is causing the gap between the have and the have not to widen further. This is quite obvious. I can see that even in my community, we are trying our best to help those who are badly affected by the B40. And we see that budget 2022 did not much to assist the B40s, or as Dr. Azim classified them as underclass, right? And the budget did not really solve the social inequality problem. I think we need a long-term initiative, not just a short-term initiative. And kalau kita relate balik dengan the first speaker, he talked about perhaps since the government cannot provide those kind of assistance, it's time the NGO also plays their role in assisting those in the underclass and the B40. So I don't know whether there is a relationship. Maybe we can form some form of relationship between what Dr. Azim has said and what that is being discussed earlier by our first panel member. Now, I would like to move on to invite the next speaker, Professor Dr. Muhammad Shukri Saleh, also from USM. He is an honorary professor at the Center for Islamic Development Management Studies, or ISDEP, USM. He is also the adjunct professor at University Sultan Sharif Ali, or Unisa, Brunei, adjunct professor at HUE University in Malaysia. And his specialization is Islamic-based development, Islamic development management, and Islamic political economy. So with that, I call upon Prof. Dr. Muhammad Shukri Saleh to begin his discussion. Silakan. You can unmute, Prof. Prof, you need to unmute. We cannot hear you. You can unmute your mic. Okay, got it.
Alright, okay. Terima kasih Prof Hassan. Auzubillahi minasyaitonirrajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah rabbil alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin. Sayyidina Muhammad wa alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Wa la hawla wa la quwwata illa billahil aliyyil azim. Astaghfirullahalazim, astaghfirullahalazim, astaghfirullahalazim. Yang saya kasihi Prof Datuk Umar, semua peserta, ahli panel dan kawan-kawan semua. I was given quite a broad topic, yeah. I was given to talk about Islamic approach. So this is very broad, but then I tend to need to zoom in to two things. It's a very simple objective that I have. Number one is to investigate the approach that has been adopted in the budget 2022. And then secondly, to look into the positions of the Islamic approach in the budget 2020. Yeah. So let me share my PowerPoint. Right. Boleh nampak tak, Prof?
Yeah, nampak.
Nampak ya.
You can put it on slideshow. Okay, got it.
Right. Okay. So actually the budget 2022 and Islamic approach is my own topic that I've created in order to achieve the two objectives. Yeah, to investigate into the approach of the budget 2022, and also to look the position of the Islamic approach in the budget. So the objective is very simple. And then one thing when we talk about the approach, one thing which is quite interesting to me is the bottom-up approach lah. Paling kurang there are 7 indicators that we can conclude that the budget 2022 is actually adopting a bottom-up approach. Yeah. Even though there is no clear and exact mentions of the approach in the budget, but I think we can conclude that actually they are using the to some extent what we can call the bottom-up approach. For instance, number 1, there were series of on-the-ground engagement across various states in Malaysia. So they go, they turun ke Padang and then have the discussions with various focus groups and then having meetings and consultation. And at least there were about a total of 30 focus groups they have met. And then apart from that, they also analyzed about, in fact, over 1,100 memorandums, which I believe that has been given or sent by macam-macam various parties. And then number 4, there are also 80 engagement with the governments and opposition political leaders to discuss about the budget, and then it eventually come up dengan publication of a pre-budget statement, and then lepas itu ada lagi publication of 4 public consultation papers, and then lastly dia ada consideration of nearly 50,000 proposals received via budget 2022 portals. So saya rasa ini satu perkara yang menunjukkan bahawa sangat bersifat bottom-up approach rather than a top-down approach as opposed to the top-down approach. But then the question is now, kalau kita tengok ada tak Islamic approach dalam the budget ini? So unfortunately the answer is much to be desired lah. Even though there are Islamic elements, probably one can ask, are not there any Islamic elements in the budget? Yes, there are. Yes, there are. But we cannot consider with a few elements, Islamic elements in the budget, we cannot conclude that actually the budget is adopting the Islamic approach. One also may probably stress more by saying that probably there are a few things that probably we can call it Islamic or sebagai Islamic elements. So for instance, there are 2 verses, quotations of Quranic verses, misalnya, when the Menteri talk about the orphans, anak yatim dan sebagainya, so he quoted Al-Baqarah 20 verse 20. And then at the end of the presentations of the budget, dalam conclusion itu, the Menteri kata we have to submit to Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala, but after a very serious efforts. Then dia put Kalam 22. So nampak ada Islamic elements that be in that. And apart from that also, if you go to the core of the budget itself, so for instance, the theme is Keluarga Malaysia, Makmur Sejahtera, and that the pillars is strengthening recovery, building resilience, and also driving reforms. And focus also rakyat's well-being, resilient businesses, prosperous and sustainable economy. Values lagi juga nampaknya tidak bertentangan, is not in contradictory daripada Islamic punya elements, inclusivity, togetherness, and gratitude. So the core of the budget itself seems to be not in the contradictions with the Islamic punya doctrines lah. And one also may ask that there are a process of redistribution. Redistribution, for instance, there are a lot of monetary assistance, perks, tax reduction, tax initiative, and so forth. All these are probably not in contradiction with the Islamic teachings. And then moreover, you can see that there are at least 4 Islamic things that have been initiated in the budget 2022. Misalnya ada halal, They allocated 25 million ringgit for that via Halal Development Corporation untuk halal product digital brandings and halal product marketability programs, all that. So ada itu aspek itu, dan halal of course is an Islamic injunctions. Yang kedua ialah wakaf. 10 million is allocated for wakaf, especially for wakaf SME halal, agriculture wakaf, and also disaster wakaf initiative. Number 3, dia juga ada budget 1.5 billion given to JAKIM to uphold the pillar of Islam, sama ada in the management and development Islamic affairs ataupun the assistance given to religious school, especially the development of religious school in Labuan, and also monetary assistance to Takmir, Imam Bilal, and all the religious workers in the country. Then number 4 ada allocation for Islamic educational institution. Also we are JAKIM ada 140 million ringgit for that, termasuk untuk bagi kepada tahfiz schools, rakyat religious schools, pondok religious schools, and so forth. So kalau kita tengok sini on the right, we can see that the core of the budget itself seems to be quite Islamic, and also there are elements of Islamic in the budget. But the question is why I came to a decision that actually the budget is not adopting an Islamic approach. Yeah, this is the reasons. Number 1, definitely and very clearly that there is no mentions of any approach in the budget, no mention whatever tadi tak sebut itu ya, and also definitely it is not based on Islamic framework. When we talk about Islamic framework, probably now the advocates of Maqasid Syariah will say that actually if you want to talk about Islamic approach, you have to have the Islamic framework, and you have to base the budget on the Maqasid Syariah. Or you were talking about Islamic approach, one probably will request the governments to have a Maqasid Al-Quran, for instance. Yeah? It's quite interesting now. There are a lot of people talking about Islamic Sharia, but some of the advocates of Maqasid Sharia now is trying to move on not only to Maqasid Sharia but also to Maqasid Al-Quran. And even there are scholars also who are now talking about Maqasid Al-Akhlaq, yeah, Al-Akhlaq. So Al-Quran definitely it deals with everything in there, Sharia, peraturan, regulations, but then Quran and Sharia without akhlaq, it is also not adequate. So also, if we were to conclude that the budget is using an Islamic approach, so there must be a mention of Islamic principle in that, which is naklah kita tak jumpa dalam itu. Then we talk about Islamic principles, and probably we have to talk about the modes of the budget, yeah, the acuan of the budget, and it has to be based on the tasawwur, the Islamic worldview, and also probably the epistemology of the budget, and the actors with the development actors, the time scale, the framework, the methodology, the means, and also the ultimate aims of the budget. Right? Yeah? This is we cannot find all this in the budget. That's why I came to a conclusion that actually budget 2022 is not using an Islamic approach, but rather than that, from our observation, even there was shown just now that they don't have any clear mentions or any approach used in the budget. But from our observation, we can sense that actually they are using Western ethnocentric. So they are going around in that using the conventional economic cycle, for instance. Yeah, they're trying to inject aids and financial assistance into the economy of the state, of the country, so that they can provide the purchasing power, or at least to increase the purchasing power of the people. And then by purchasing power, then there'll be a demand for that, and there'll be, after demand, there'll be the increase of productivity, and in order to increase the productivity, Definitely you have to have the employment, and then later on the employers will get the wages, and then also the demand and so on. Then this is very conventional economic cycle that is adopting in the budget. So now the conclusion is that we can see that there are Islamic elements in the budget, but these Islamic elements seems to be positioned within the Western ethnocentric framework. I was saying just now that at least there are 4 Islamic elements that are upholding pillars of Islam, Islamic educational institution, Waqaf, Halal, and that. But all these are packaged in the Western ethnocentric economic paradigms. So it's not the framework is the Western ethnocentric economic thinking, and then the elements, the Islamic element is in there. So I think probably one will ask, so what is the nasib, the fate of the Islamic approach within the budget?
Prof, you have 5 minutes, Prof.
Yeah, all right, okay. Kita tak putus asa, and actually we still have the opportunity to do that, insyaAllah. Not in the whole budget, but at a micro level of it, the Islamic approach for the Islamic elements. Say for instance, the halal, the schools, the management and all of that, we can always Islamize it, or we can always use the Islamic approach to deal with all the Islamic elements in the budget. So meaning that Islamic approach means that which is based on the Maqasid Al-Quran, Islamic framework, on the Maqasid Sharia, probably the Islamic principles. We have to redefine the modes of the Islamic elements that we're going to implement, the actors also, development actors, rather than the economic actors per se. Probably we will be talking about the Hamba Allah and also the Khalifah Allah, the time scale, instead of looking the budget for just 1 year, 2022. Probably we'll be talking about our perjanjian dengan Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala as a hamba Allah and also Khalifah Allah during kita punya alam roh, and then dunia ini is just a place for us to prove to Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala that actually we submit to the promise that we have done masa kita punya alam roh, and definitely the reward, the ultimate reward will be in the akhirah. So we have to be talking about that. The framework also, we have to be based on the Fardu Ain, Fiqh, Tawhid, and Tawhid, Fiqh, and also Tasawuf. The methodology should be ibadah, so that every deed that we are doing will be considered by Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala as worship to Allah, inshallah. And the means is the natural resources. Kita punya means yang Allah created purposely for us to make it, to use it sebagai alat untuk membuktikan perhambaan dan juga kekhalifahan kita. And definitely the ultimate aim, we have to discuss about the ultimate aim, which is mardatillah. Kita semua ini cuba mencari redha Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala, so that we'll have the al-falah, hasanah fi dunya wa hasanah fil akhirah. So even though Islamic elements within the whole budget of the Western ethnocentric paradigms, but still we still have the opportunity, and hopefully that those who are involved in implementing the Islamic elements, especially in the 4 things that I've mentioned just now, will use the Islamic approach to that. So as a conclusion, we can see that actually budget 2020 is not using the Islamic approach, but then there is still an opportunity to use the Islamic approach when dealing with the Islamic elements in the budget. Right. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Terima kasih Prof. Muhammad Shukri. So basically, Prof highlighted that the budget is still not within the realm of the principle of Islamic Sharia, or the principle of Allah as a sovereign. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. So basically, we need to bring it within the realms of the principle of Allah as absolute sovereign. Thank you, Prof. With that, I would like to go straight to the next final speaker. Please, but if you have any question, please type the question in the chat. With that, I would like to invite Prof. Dr. Sheikh Abdul Malik Muhammad Ismail. Let me introduce him briefly first. Professor Dr. Sheikh Abdul Malik Muhammad Ismail is currently the Honorary Associate Professor of Education at the School of Educational Studies, University of Science, Malaysia. He is also a Senior Research Fellow at the Division of Industry and Community Network, University of Science, Malaysia, and a Senior Education Specialist at UScience, holding Sdn Bhd, the commercial arm of USM. He's an academician and an academic institution administrator, former Dean of School of Educational Studies, USM, taught postgraduate classes and doctoral supervision before in curriculum and instruction, educational administration, and English language studies. So at the moment, he is working on educational projects benefiting the underprivileged community and their families. And he's primarily looking at students' development in academic, soft skill, and social emotional well-being. So I think Dr. Omar Osman mentioned your name quite a few times in his presentation. So with that, I hand over the session over to you. Silakan, Dr. Sheikh Abdul Malik.
Thank you so much, Prof, for having me today. And I would like to say Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh to Prof Dato Omar as our president and the rest of our members here in this group. Ladies and gentlemen, I would say that Prof Dato Omar has dissected the budget dispersion, especially for education, for both the Kementerian Pelajaran Malaysia and as well as Kementerian Pengajian Tinggi. So I'm having a different approach here. I will go because I was told that I'm supposed to say something about this, and therefore I have share these ideas with a few people in the education, people in the business, and some NGOs as well. So I've gathered some information on the ground, especially to be discussed today. So next, please. So the preamble of the budget, as Prof. Dato' OO has already mentioned earlier, it's for strengthening recovery, building resilience, and driving reforms. It actually fits well with the education per se. All these three things are crucial for education. Next. So basically, it was said in the press that it's all about education, I would see, because rebuilding the resilience and capacity of the nation's healthcare, enhancing digital and technological infrastructure, it is said here is particularly within education. But I see this as reciprocal, whereby education should be in the middle. Healthcare is related. Without proper healthcare, next week, the 22nd, is where all the kids going back to school for those in the phase 4, and also all universities already accepting students beginning this month. So therefore, it is all within education. So facilitating the transition of high productivity for the industrial sectors and also digital and technological infrastructure is all, I would say, all is about education. So next. In a nutshell, this is the budget. How's the outlook? Prof. Dato' Omar is already going through. Next, please. Yes, this is also what in store for education. Next. All right. These are some of the expenditure highlights. So, based on these expenditure highlights, what I did was I, sit down with some people and I talked to them, and they have expressed their views. So I will share them with everyone here. Next. Right. These are the opinions coming from the ground, from these people. So they have pointed out several emerging themes that I've able to collect. So integrity actually come up first because they were talking a lot about integrity. When I asked them, like, you know, a generic question like budget for education is the highest, and also the amount of money as such, and what do you think? They started off talking about integrity. And then the next important thing is to benchmark, to measure the ROI. So particularly for those who are involved in the planning and also the writers of the budget, they are concerned about how to benchmark and to measure the ROI, because at least universities has got the ranking thing going on year in, year out, but the schools is something that we need to do something about it. That's what they were saying. And then some ideas about it's too centralized, so they would also want to see some decentralization in the budget dispersion. And they were talking also about maintenance and repair, because they were saying that maintenance was overlooked for a long time, and suddenly now repairs are coming in. And they also mentioned sarcastically by saying that repairs would garner more news. So it will look good on the government repairing the buildings, but in actual sense, maintenance should be observed. Next, special project sustainability. Year in, year out, we have special projects awarded by the budget. They were saying that what happened to those special projects? Can we earmark them? Can we enhance them? Well, lessons from the past is another issue, whereby they were saying that year in, year out, we have the Laporan Audit, Ketua Audit Negara, we have this committee and that committee to look into matters. So what have we done with all those documents? Have we looked into it introspectively? Have we taken into account what's happening? But things keep coming back. Year in, year out, the same old things keep coming back. That's what they say. So and then COVID aligned budget. Well, it's nice and good, as Prof. Dato' Omar has already mentioned earlier. They were saying that budget should be aligned, COVID should be aligned. Well, they have aligned, but whether the alignment is in the right track or not, that's something that we need to look at. The connectivity issue actually is a long-standing issue. At the moment, close to 40% of the students, school students, are not able to enjoy connectivity. Don't talk about the story about the going up on the tree in Sabah or Sarawak or what have you, but talk about Penang itself. I'm living in Minden Heights. I've only gotten my Unify last month. So my children are saying that we should have gotten it like 4 or 5 years ago. So what more in those living in the rural areas? Okay, efficiency and effectiveness in the dispersing of the budget is very crucial here. Okay, now I like to just take you a glimpse, some snippet of what they have said in their actual words, but some has been omitted because of the sensitivity. But maybe we can just take a look next. Yeah, this is what they say. From the academia, from business people and professionals. So I spent quite a bit of time sitting with them, drinking tea and coffee under some trees, you know, around Penang. So this is what I've gotten. Necessary to go through details on the micro part, have to examine Laporan Ministry together with Laporan Audit Negara. So each our MOHE and also our MOE has got their own Laporan. So they wanted to put together and to have a better understanding of the budget preparation for maybe perhaps 2023. So Laporan Audit, Ketua Audit plays important role exposing all the flaws and blunders, especially in procurement. So perhaps we might want to look at it a little bit more introspectively. Of course, they were saying this. I don't want to say the lack of good governance. Awareness of strict enforcement, but does not work well in our country due to interference from, and again, I have to delete that. You know, everybody knows what. The whole nation and system need to be refurbished. Most development budget will be lost to keterisan due to so and so. And they were saying, this person was saying, even though if it's in the trillions, it will not work if the keterisan is still attrition. The attrition is still there. Next. This is about integrity again. It's all about being seen and no real concern about the actual on the things on the ground. For example, if I take the that gadget thing, though it's like 600-700 ringgit for university students, of course they need to top up. They cannot just be receiving that amount of gadget because that gadget will not be able to be sustained for the 3 to 4 years of study at the university in terms of the storage capacity and in terms of what it can and cannot do. Because the the posh asrama schools in Cyberjaya and whatnot, because my daughter went there, and then the specs were given for about 2,000 to 3,000 ringgit. But of course, those students who cannot afford, the PIBG will take care. But 2,000 to 3,000 ringgit took her through for 5 years without any glitches. So I don't know what 700 can do, but this is something that we have to think about. Lesson from the past, to evaluate the impact and practicality effectiveness of the budget is to make retro reference to the spending and performance of the previous year budget. It's not much a difference between last and this year, slightly increase in the terms of percentage, also the amount, but because of the of the COVID alignment, therefore money got lost taking care of the COVID. Maintenance versus repair, like I said before, still Wise School in deplorable condition due to our maintenance culture, not only at the school but also at higher institution. Maintenance seems to be poor, so perhaps we have to look at the onset. Connectivity, they were saying that whatever we are having now is not very good in the schools and it's slow. Next. How to measure school success. So at least university has the yearly ranking, so the school needs to look into it more introspectively. Later I will talk about what other countries, how do they measure. So project sustainability, what happened to the special earmarks project. So because things keep on changing, we're not building things vertically, but rather horizontally. So we should build up from what the past. If it's good, so we should build it up. Effectiveness, okay, Malaysia, according to one person who mentioned this, and I went and look up, it is true, because I was surprised. I cannot see 1:12 in our schools. Because I know the answer. The answer is because we have way too many fat admin departments in all, MOHE plus MOE. That's why we are looking at 1:12. The 500,000 education staff is divided by schools is 1:12, but mostly because many of the categorically the DGs are working in the education departments and district office. Horrible Malaysian work ethics, better off to hire foreigners. This is what they say outrightly. The Penang Forward conference recently officiated by the TYT of Penang. Also, many of the companies are talking about our work ethics and also our our school is not doing enough. But actually, this is a very tricky issue. I think our locals, yesterday I went to a small restaurant and it was a boutique one, and I can see all Malays working. So I can, sort of think that the Malays like the nice quote unquote environment, as you can see in Starbucks and whatnot. They do not prefer to go to the mamak joint, whereby it's so hectic and a lot of work. So as you can see, this is a classic example at the Pearl Setia area. There's a Mamak Kapitan signature, all Malays, all local. And if you go to the actual Kapitan, just behind it, all, I don't know what, from India and Bangladeshi and whatnot. So attitude problem, language issues, not skillful enough to meet the industry demands for skilled workers. This has been for years. So we need to do something about that. Next.
Prof, 5 minutes, Prof.
Okay. Integrity issue, as I said, benchmark issue. Oh, okay, next. So we have to hurry up. Decentralized, so we should be following some of the EU and Western model about how to decentralize the dispersion of the money. Maintenance, like I said, we should concentrate more rather than the repairs. Special projects, next. These are some of the solution that was given actually. Next. So lesson from the past, so we should learn from the connectivity project, solar panels, milk program, tablet, laptop program. All these are, we keep going to over and over again the mistake cycle. Lukewarm alignment, like I said, 750 for the underprivileged university. A lot of money is spent, but I don't know whether the tablet will go a long way or not. 3 to 4 years of study. Perhaps we have to come up with a solution. Connectivity, like I said, about close to 40% still do not enjoy. So we need to think of something more solid. Next. So effectiveness of the funding, this is the issue of integrity here. So UNESCO also have highlighted about Malaysians. So they were saying that improving the effectiveness of funding is important. Unfortunately, recent increases in public education spending have been associated with relatively small improvement in education outcomes. So that's the problem. Next. So final thoughts, I thought we should look into how we should, in US, for example, they approached the Waltons family, they own Walmarts in America. So 1 week prior to the school opening, Walmart will be selling at a very, very extremely low price. So they will list down the school names, and if you enter Walmart, you mention the school, you have to put down your name and you buy one piece of each of the items. Stationery is sold, like pencil color, like 10, 15, 20 cents. Walmart has given budget. So I think external financing, like the Wakaf is talking about, but we also should approach the biggest chain in Malaysia, the most, all the millionaires in Malaysia, and see whether these outlets can also help. All right, digitalization, I was saying we need to look at it, and refreshing innovative idea for Tibet. This is also ongoing issue. Next. We are about to finish. Initiative riddled with allegation we should avoid, of course. The OECD was echoing Malaysian students. Apparently, they are 3 years behind their peers. So it's nice to see, timely to see. 2018 was the last PISA assessment. We are not doing very well. So they say that the 2021 been postponed to 2022. We'll see what happens next year. At least some form of benchmarking there. All right, next. Okay, some, e-gaming, e-learning. This is the gig economy. All this should be looked into more. Next. All right, this is what the budget allocation. Apparently, when I look at Malaysia is at par with the top tier. So Andorra, actually, I went and looked up 18.96 they've spent. And when I see that they have 100% literacy rate there. So that's interesting about Andorra. Next. So this is a teacher ratio. As you can see, Denmark is doing pretty well. Germany is doing pretty well. Finland is doing pretty well. US also surpassed Malaysia in PISA. UK also, Singapore is even better. But as you can see, 12-1 is really something, it's a mysterious number. It shouldn't be like that actually. Next. United States is #1 best high school. This is about talking about the the well-being of the school and how they are well prepared to go to higher education and things like that, less bullying and things like that. These are the countries, and Malaysia is at 38. Next. So these are how we fare. So 48, 49, and 57 respectively. But the news came up by saying that Malaysia has improved. Of course, it has improved from the 215 result. So 218 was better. So we wait for 222. Where do we stand? So as you can see, the trend is all these are autocratic countries. As you can see, China, Macau, Hong Kong, they are not democratic, but they tend to do better. I'm not sure whether they're doing rote learning or otherwise, but we should be seeing those in the number 10 to number 15 or 20. Those are more democratic, like Finland, Denmark, Norway, Sweden. Those are countries like approaching education in a more democratic manner. Next. Okay, thank you. One question that somebody asked about 4 days, 5 days. Actually, study shows China has got the most number of days going to school in the world. They are surpassed 220 over the years. US having the least number of days. Malaysia surrounds around 190 per days. Two issues here. With the new norm, meaning going to school is not really that important anymore. We can take charge of our own education by online and whatnot. Number two, it is not about the number of days going to school, but the number of quality contact hours. So have I answered to that question there? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Sheikh. Very interesting discussion. I remember once when I was in UMK, the KSU, Ministry of Higher Education came to visit us. We were having difficulty in getting developmental budget. He raised the issue why universities in Malaysia are so, we have quite a big space area, we have spent so much, and we have buildings all over campus. Why can't we have one simple building where we house everything in there, like most private universities? So when it comes to the current scenarios, then we realize that we have very small budget to work on a big campus. I remember even the UTM punya pengarah pejabat harta bina, sebab tak cukup budget, he has to go around collecting leaves because if they couldn't employ, so the campus was huge, so he had to go from one side of the building to another, right? So these are the things in terms of assets. And then I think now the budget is focusing on digital assets, which I think is a good move. But then again, I think UMK started giving iPad to students long time ago, yeah. But it did not really take off because we did not provide similar tools or gadget to the lecturers. So I think it's not just to students, they should also start looking into the possibility of whether our teachers has sufficient gadget to match with the students. All right, okay, thank you very much. With that, Dr. Chek has already answered one question that was posed on the chat. We welcome more questions from the audience. We have one for Dr. Azim. Dr. Azim, can you take up this question on social equity? On social equity, the special and disadvantaged group in the budget. Can you comment on that?
Yes, Prof. I think in every budget there is allocations for single families, for families with disabled kids, and so on. I think this is lumped together under the 2.4 billion allocation for B40 households, and also households with income household income that is less than 5,000 ringgit a year. I think this is part and parcel of government cash transfers, whereby the government will actually give aid in terms of cash to family with disabled children, single mothers, and so on. I think the issue here is not so much I think the issue here is not so much about the cash being transferred to disabled families with disabled children, or families with low income. I think the bigger issue that we have to wrestle with is the inequities or inequality that exists in our society. And of course, we have a policy that was in place for more than 20 years. You just look at the new economic policy. The new economic policy aims to eradicate poverty. It was in force for more than 20 years, for 20 years, and the spirit of NEP is still with us today. It is about redistributing income to the less fortunate groups. But has it worked? I think the bigger question is, when we talk about the welfare of the people in this country, we need to understand that whatever redistributive policy that was in place, it was not able to remedy the inequities that exist. When I'm talking about, I'm not talking about wealth creation here per se, but I'm talking about the fair share, the amount of wealth or the redistribution that should be given, the fair share of national wealth, how it is fairly redistributed to all groups in society.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Dr. Azim. I got one question I would like to pose to Mr. Ifran, if you are.
Yes, Doctor.
Now, we have heard the panel discussion today, and also the earlier session, where it seems that, according to Dr. Azim, for example, the budget may not be able to address the social or economic gap that exists in the community, right? Now, coming back to you, you talk about fintech, wakaf, zakat, crowdfunding, which is very interesting in the sense. Is there a possibility where NGOs now should come in and play their role to assist in the empowerment of the B40s rather than, as you mentioned earlier, rather than giving them the fish, give them the fishing rod?
Absolutely.
Right? Is there a possibility that where the issue that we discussed today can, or the gap can be narrowed through the initiative where the NGOs or the social enterprise comes in, and you being the funder, you offer an alternative funding solution. I remember when Muhammad Yunus started Grameen Bank,
right. Yep.
he managed to empower the women, the poor women of Bangladesh, and now they can provide education to their children, which they never did before. So what is your take on that?
You know, on that note, 100%. I think the NGOs, they definitely have to come in because as Dr. Azim mentioned, you know, it's not sufficient whatever the amount has been allocated. And I think this is also in line with some of the things I shared. And I definitely agree that that's the point. Now that you mentioned Grameen Bank, Dr. Yunus, I believe that was more of a microfinancing model. I'm not sure whether we've also heard of the model in Pakistan called Akhwat. And Akhwat is a pure Qard Hasan model. So meaning interest-free loan, they give that same amount and they get the same amount in return, and they survive purely on our donations. And I think that's also one of the models. And I have an example within our own ecosystem. And I also mentioned like the potential of incorporating fintech into Qard Hasan, because you know you give the ability for them to have some sort of like whatever you call it, like initial working capital, seed capital, but it's not for them to hold forever. Meaning it's not just going to be like 100 ringgit, you buy your food, gone. But there is that, you know, so empowerment. Here's some funds, do what you need to do, improve your business, but you need to pay it forward. You need to repay it. So Akhwat, interestingly, I mean, I'm not going to go into the details, but there was some research done on their model, pure Qard Hasan. They were even, you know, they were present even before the existence of Islamic banking, in fact, in Malaysia. Interestingly enough, because when you talk about Qard Hasan and you want to talk about, you know, your average Joe that you meet, you know, bagi hutang, takut orang tak bayar balik semua, and there's no like strings attached, you don't get a secret record and such. Surprisingly, the repayment of the Qard Hasan from Akhwat is better than any microfinancing products, is better than any Islamic banking repayment success. And the fact that they have also, you know, because the beauty of Qard Hasan, which I keep talking about this, but it's because I think it's relevant. The beauty of Qard Hasan, there has to be an element which people don't want to take, is where if they can't pay for whatever legitimate reason, that is the element where you're supposed to just forgive the loan. That is a huge risk, like not a lot of organizations would want to take upon. But that model has worked in Pakistan. We do have a lot of entities here. In fact, we're working with one NGO, and what we've done, because the amount is so small, 1,500 ringgit, like a Qard Hasan. If I ask any one of you, if an individual wants to apply for Qard Hasan in our existing financial system for 1,500 ringgit, no interest, who would lend that out? I can't think of too many established institutions. So this NGO, in addition to just getting this funds, identifying the recipients, and I even have seen as young as an 18-year-old girl supporting the family, they tie them up to a manufacturer of products. So for example, you know, this particular arrangement, this NGO has an arrangement with Farm Fresh. So they have UHT milk products. They train them up to become, you know, small entrepreneurs with this initial capital. They buy the stock, and as they, you know, make their daily sales and they get some revenue and profits, they start repaying. So the fintech element that I wanted to incorporate to that, as I was mentioning, the app, Qard Hasan applied within the app, assessment done within the app, disbursement to a certain extent within store credits to a digital commerce platform, repayment is somewhat covered, and this will just continue to cycle. The only issue with this kind of I would say products is the lack of support from the contributors, because people, I'll be honest, I you know, just looking in the crowdfunding space, you give them a campaign to support someone who's starving in other parts of the world, war-torn countries, they will support. You tell them this is for education, unfortunately the public doesn't support as much. You tell them, oh, this is Kot Hassan, that's, you know, for the same amount that you wanted to give, 10 ringgit, 100 ringgit, 10,000 ringgit, you can multiply the impact. They just want something straightforward. I just want to feed the poor. So I think we need to rethink how we help, and we need to, as you mentioned, we need to teach them to fish, but we can't just, here's some funds, do what you do usually. We need to also upskill them. And that's just my point on that. Hope I answered your question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Encik Fan. I think you got it straight on the spot. We also have some questions coming in for the previous presenter. I think we can open up to Dr. Aziz, for example. Dr. Aziz, there's one question for you on gig entrepreneurs. What is their future? I mean, can you consider them also as being SMEs? Because I think being they can either be considered as a micro entrepreneurs. I'm not sure. So what is your take on that?
For me, saya Prof, is it for me?
Yeah, it's for you.
Okay, I think kalau kita tengok data that was presented earlier by Sharid, because of the environmental change, I think sudden change in the environment because of pandemic, you know, people tend to look at the change from positive side, which is what are the opportunities exist because of the change. So I think this depend on the needs. So the need is people need to buy food and so on, etc. Not only food but other items, consumer items. So kalau we look at the data, that was presented earlier, it shows that there's a sudden growth in terms of numbers, sudden growth, like a project trajectory growth because of this. So because the demand from the consumer side, I think this will become, and then because of the development of the digitalization, etc. You know, so this thing become, I think, will become a normal job. That's why I said earlier, I think should be accounted as employment. Right now, it's not being accounted yet. It's not considered as employment yet. Should be accounted in the accounting of employability. So gig, I think, will become from my own perspective gig will become a major industry. I guess I can call it industry, gig industry. Because we read from the literature, we see a lot of gig entrepreneur, gig entrepreneurship, gig economy. So these the big words. Entrepreneurship, entrepreneurial economy is a big word. So it will become industry. I think it will be a major contributor in terms of job creation and income generation to the society. This is my thinking. I think it will grow up. I think the future is still there, because it's already growth. But since they already developed the infrastructure, the system, the structure be developed, so they might improve it, and move on. It's going to move on. I will never die. I don't think so. It will become a major contribution to the economy. That's from my own view. I think many people think like that as well. That's
okay. Thank you, Dato'. Now, kalau tak ada soalan, I got one question. See, there's no question coming from the audience. Now, I got one question. Tadi Dato' Omar did presented on the budget, and one of the budget that was presented is on the digitization of businesses. Right? Mungkin Dr. Azim boleh jawab, or anybody lah, or even any of the 4 panel members. The budget for digitization, which is about 200 million with 50 million for the Bumiputera entrepreneurs in the rural area. Now, my question is whether this Sumetnah or makcik-makcik di kampung ni, for example, most of them are not digital native, right? And I'm not sure whether they can become a digital nomad or digital immigrants. Jadi, my concern there is that will that initiative will end up assisting or narrowing the gap further, or it's just a waste of money? That's what has happened in many initiatives earlier. So anybody would like to comment? Silakan. Ataupun mungkin from the Islamic perspective, where Dr. Ahmad Shukri, is there any element that you can address on that matter? I mean, 200 million is a lot. You bagi pada Sumetnah makcik-makcik kampung ni, apalah dia tahu pasal digitalization. I remember Melaka did that. The last mile initiative I was involved many years ago. Dia nak train all these makcik-makcik supaya ada website. Okay, so akhirnya yang kaya ni bukan makcik yang meniaga tu, orang yang buat website. So anybody who wants to comment, silakan.
I think that, Prof, I'll just say a few words. I think, you know, the digital gap, we don't really measure the digital gap that exists in Malaysia. We can assume that, you know, in the rural areas, especially those who are maybe 60 years and above, are not really into the digital economy. So I think we really need to understand that what is fundamentally wrong with our economy is the system that we currently use to redistribute wealth. I think Professor Shukri has hit the problem right on his head. We are using a Western-centric approach in redistributing wealth, and it's not working. It's not only work. It's not. I mean, this is a global problem. You see, the emergence of the underclass is not only a problem in our society, but it is also happening in the developed world. The middle income group in the United States, for example, their income has stagnated for more than 20 years. So when wealth is concentrated in the hands of the few, no matter what initiative comes from the state, it will not work. This is just window dressing. You're talking about 200 million window dressing coming from the government. Will it change anything? I doubt it. How much did the government spend under the NEP for the Bumiputra? Has it changed the fate of the Bumiputra? Yes, it created a sizable middle class among the Bumiputra professionals, but this group is struggling at the moment. So as long as we run our economy as it is, business as usual, no matter what initiatives come from the state, I don't think it will help the poor. I think we need to go back to the drawing board and maybe use a different model of development. I think Professor Shukri can talk about this from the Islamic perspective. So I'll stop there, Prof.
Okay, I agree to some extent what Azim was telling. I think the whatever fund being distributed to the society should create multiplier, should create impact, should be multiplied. If the government pump in 200 million, it should be multiplied 6-7 times in the economy. But the problem is, as Azim said, I see your problem. The problem is we did not provide other tools for them to do that. For example, knowledge, knowledge, skill. For example, not enough skill. You just give. Macam charity saja. That's not enough. Giving just charity, I don't think the money will multiply as what we intended to do. I think the money should go with others, with the supports, with others. That's my point lah. Because the idea is to create impact to the economic growth, to the regional or whatever society economic growth. That's the point. I think that not just by giving money, give something else together with the money. That's my thinking lah. Thank you.
Dr. Azim stressed on the fundamentals of the economy. Bermakna, how do we distribute them? Okay, Dr. Azim talk about the tools. Mungkin our fellow Dr. Shukri, even Dr. Sheikh Malik, for example, you talk about issues of education. Mungkin ada kaitan dengan what Dr. Azim has mentioned earlier, dan juga Dr. Shukri mentioned where the system that we have, the system that we are using is basically a system that we still inherit from the West, right? Orang kata British dah lama balik negara dia, tapi kita masih lagi dijajah dengan dia punya cara berfikir, sistem dia dan sebagainya. So I don't know. I leave it to the panel. What is your take on this, Dr. Shukri?
Ya, kalau boleh saya contribute a little bit. Actually, yeah, definitely we have to, the budget is commendable. I think they have tried their best to offer whatever that they should offer for the sake of the well-being of the people. But at the same time, we can see the shortcomings because they are trying to solve the problems at the surface of the problems. So the diagnosis is just on the surface, and then definitely this is based on the Western ethnocentric paradigm, which is limited in analyzing the problems, because they are just confined, the tools of analysis just confined on the scientific matters. So there is no there is no tools of analysis to diagnose the intangibility of the problems. So what I mean by the intangibility here is definitely the iman, the nafsu, and also whatever that you have inside yourself, yeah. Oleh kerana we are not dealing with that. So therefore, we are going around on the surface without going into the real problems. So to me, I think the real problems is definitely kita punya kalbu lah, ya. During Rasulullah SAW and also Khalifah Rashidin, we can see that orang-orang kaya adalah orang-orang yang pemurah, while orang-orang miskin adalah orang-orang yang kana'ah. So with that kind of sifat, which definitely is based on the iman and taqwa and also the nafs. Yeah, when we want to go deeper into that, they'll cakap pasal iman dan taqwa, and probably we need to analyze and identify the levels of iman, for instance. Yeah, there are at least 5 levels of iman: iman taklid, iman ilmu, iman ayan, iman hak, iman hakikat, and all that. Yeah, and then we go to about the nafsu, which actually nafsu ni yang berkehendak. The nafsu yang will trigger kita punya whatever that we want, the wants. So oleh kerana nafsu rendah, for instance, amarah, lawamah, malhamah, and then ini yang jadi a few yang rich tapi dia not willing to distribute their wealth. Ya, so macam Dato' Azim kata, setengah tu di setengah saja, and then yang miskin terus miskin begitu. But then kalau nafsu itu nafsu dia perkara mutmainnah, radiyah, mardiyah, kamilah, they are very generous. So the generosity is unique. So now, if we want to solve the problems with the inequality and also ini, there are a few concepts that probably we can ini. Yang pertamanya, we are not trying to have the samarata punya concept, because samarata relates very much to the materials punya things. What we should do is to ini saksama, yeah, the saksama. So saksama is not really indicated by the materials, but apart from that, by the values. Macam ini. Yang kedua ialah we have to differentiate between the wants and the wants, and also apa yang diperlukan, yang kehendak dengan keperluan. So now we are trying to, the budget ni nampaknya they are trying to create the wants, bukan the keperluan. Ini sangat, ya. So this is another problem. Jadi I think if we want to solve that problems, we have to go back to the basic and try to settle our inner self, and then insyaAllah lepas itu nanti kita akan dapat prescription yang lebih tepat, insyaAllah.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Thank you, Dr. We got two questions actually. I think the question on gig coming from Hizam, that one has been answered by Shireen tadi. Our system memang is not preparing Malaysia to be gig entrepreneur. There's a lot of things that need to be done. And pertaining to data security, baru ni pun dalam forum on digital leadership, we mentioned about that. When the former VC of UTM, Dr. Shireen mentioned that in terms of data security, we are not there yet. So basically, but I think that was answered dalam the previous panel. Now, I'm more interested in the last question too, by Zahri. I think this one is more suitable for Azim. Dr. Azim, you have to answer this because you are a political scientist. The question is, what happened to the accepted 3-tier government, federal, state, and local authority? Are they working? Gone should be the days when the federal government given all the power to do that. But after independence for more than 60 years, we should consider decentralization, and this can ensure the efficiency of distribution and the penetration of government policy. What is your take on this, Dr. Azim?
Thank you, Prof. I think this is definitely a timely question. But I think if we really look at our system, we are not really a federation. It is a centralized federation. So if we use the concept federalized federation, centralized federation, it is an oxymoron because these are two opposites. But the truth of the matter is the federal government in Malaysia is too powerful. And of course, we have the three-tier government, the federal, the state, and the local. Of course, we can see that there are strains in the relationship between the federal government and states that are controlled by a different political party. And of course, there's no election at the local level. The local elections was actually abolished in the 1960s. I think moving forward, we really need to decentralize. But of course, when we look at the fiscal dimension of federal-state relationship, the state cannot really raise that much fund to be independent from the federal government. The federal government, I mean, the coffers of the federal government is really huge. So that is why we are having a highly centralized federation in Malaysia. But depending on what happens in the coming years, I think there will be some kind of devolution of power coming from the center. This is already happening in terms of the relationship between Kuala Lumpur and Kuching and also Kota Kinabalu, because these two states are asserting their autonomy. They are going back to MA 63. So we are looking at devolution of power in terms of the relationship between Kuala Lumpur, Kuching, and Kota Kinabalu. Mainly, it has to do with the political scenario, because the federal government depends on these two states to remain in power. But I think more importantly, we should be focusing on the local government, because I think a lot of services that we need as citizens in this country are provided by the local government. So, but we don't pay attention to the local government, and of how the local government is run has a huge impact on our well-being. The zoning and so on and so forth. This has been neglected in the not only in terms of public discussion, but also in the discourse, in the academic discourse. We don't pay attention to local government at all in Malaysia. So I think it is important that the people, the citizens in this country are aware that there exists a three-tier of government, but most attention are of course given to the federal government. But in terms of the balance of power, of course, the federal government has more powers than these other two lower level government.
Okay, thank you, Kazim. I'm trying to stop before Azan Zohor lagi, but there seems to be one question. I think let's make it the last question lah, Dr. Aziz. There's someone asking you, Aziz tanya pada Aziz, what should be in place for gig employee to be accepted as employee as far as Employment Act 1955 is concerned?
Ini macam Sherry, this is like what Sherry said earlier lah. It need to be look at it back because the act is very old, as old as me, same as my age, 66 years old. I think we should recognize self-employment. We should recognize it as an employment. We've promoted it. We promoted the self-employment through a lot of activities. In the universities, we promote entrepreneurship. Mostly we want to create job creators, someone who can create their own job. Not only for himself, but also for other people. But if one gig employees can expand their business, they can develop into a business organization with other employees working together with him. So why not we recognize that as an employment? Because this is big, this is very significant to the economy, very significant to our income generation, economic growth. So why not? I think should look it back, like what Sherry said. Sherry said we should look back at the act. So we should recognize it. So it will add up to the calculation or accounting of employability in the country. So now we say because if not, we always say they are unemployed. Penganggur, they are not penganggur. They are employed, self-employed. So we should recognize that. Itu saja. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Datuk. I remember kalau kita relook balik Robert Kiyosaki, he talks about cash flow. In terms of people who has the highest cash flow, dia ada quadrant dia. So the people with the lowest cash flow in that quadrant is the people who are employed, macam kita makan gaji. Lowest cash flow. Next highest is the people who are self-employed. Inilah the gig workers ni. Yeah. The gig, the self-employed. Kalau dulu kita kata self-employed itu tukang gunting rambut, tukang potong rumput, kan? But now our self-employed has gone.
Sebenarnya dah ada dah, cuma tak sebut gig dulu. It's already exist long time ago. Tapi kita tak sebut gig lah masa tu, tak ada lagi perkataan gig.
And the next highest is people who are entrepreneur, who have their own business system. And paling tinggi sekali ialah the investors. So this is where I think we need to start the relook balik at definition of gig employees and whatnot. Okay, I think saya rasa sudah azan Zuhur. I think Prof. Roslina baru menampak dia dekat sini. Patut dia jawab tadi tahu, dia jaga gig.
Dia gig expert lagi.
Would you like to say something about that before we call off the session, Prof. Roslina? You are supposed to be the expert though.
Saya.
You kena unmute.
Tak dengar.
Okay, I can't unmute just now. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, saya rasa semua expert dah ada kat situ. Actually, when you talk about the gig economy, it's a high times that the government has to revisit. But sayangnya kalau tengok pada, saya ingin ulas bajet berkenaan dengan gig economy. Actually, explicitly tidak dinyatakan the allocation to enrich the gig economy or gig players sebenarnya. It is all about the SMEs, the industries, okay, upskilling the unemployed people, but nothing much has specifically addressing the gig economy. But I echo one thing about the revisit of the policy, not revisit, the policy has to be established first, because gig economy ni ia memerlukan hanya to look after the social welfare of the person. It is not about a contract employment, because kalau dah become jadi a formal contract of employment, employer and employer, bukanlah jadi gig economy lagi. Tetapi there's some sort of a mutual agreement between the person, the gig players, and the person who hired you as a freelance. Okay, this is a different contractual sebenarnya. So it needs to be looked properly and addressed properly on that one. So itu saja komen saya buat masa ni. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. I agree. And I buat satu projek dengan one local company, dah 8 bulan tak dapat payment. So undang-undang apa dia nak guna? So finally apa yang dia buat ialah he has stopped going for customers from Malaysia. They go for overseas customer. Dia kata overseas customer payment no issue. Malaysian customer tak bayar, dia tak ada cara nak claim payment dia. Alright, okay. So I think with that, I would like to ucap terima kasih kepada DRB-HICOM University for organizing this session dan juga di SVG, Datuk Omar Osman for giving us this opportunity, for all the panel members, the speakers earlier, then also for everyone who has contributed and participated in this interesting event. Okay, I too learned a lot from the panel speakers. And I think we have come up with a very good discussion today. Thank you for all the 4 panel pagi ni, yang datang pagi ni untuk share your thoughts, your mind dan sebagainya. We hope we can have a more discussion macam ni where we being scholars, we volunteer and share our peace of mind. Yeah. Kalau tak share nanti bila ada pencen habis gitu aja. So yang pencen-pencen ni kenalah mari share kat sini. Bagi supaya kita boleh bawa balik pada generasi-generasi yang akan datang. So I wonder Dr. Muar whether kita boleh bukukan some of these sessions so that kita mungkin boleh buat dalam bentuk e-book, anybody can have a look at it dan sebagainya, because I think this is a landmark discussion lah bagi saya, where everybody comes and share their peace of mind, insyaAllah. So with that, saya rasa kita tangguh sesi kita pada tengah hari ini, dan Zuhur pun sudah mula dengan tasbih kafarah dan selawat subhanakallahumma bihamdik. Terima kasih semua. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Prof. Roslina cantiklah background tu.
So you missed that. So welcome to everybody.
Saya dengan Dr. Adil dulu bekerja-kerja bincang nak siapkan bangunan tu. Kami tak merasa. Alhamdulillah.
Kita yang betul-betul lumah buat. Tak dapat rasa pun.
Kami tak rasa bangunan tu. Okay.
Aman.
Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi.
Cantik.
Thank you so much, Prof. Hassan, and all the panels for the wonderful discussion. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of the program today. So, before we end, I would like to call upon our Dato' Omar Osman for the closing speech.
Tak ada bagi cenderah hati ke?
Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My dear friends, we have good number today, although it's Sunday. And I would also like to take note that we have a participant from China, from Jili University, Burnett. And also we have Tadi Tan Sri Anwar Ali, also from USM, who has retired, Sheikh Zahari. And I noticed there's Professor Zita here from Quest University and a few others who are actually interested in our budget discussion. But I think the essence is not about budget per se, but the essence is about the relationship between government incentive and government budget to the current issues that we have now. And I think we have looked at it from the Islamic perspective, from the social equity point of view, education, and also the gig entrepreneurship and also SMEs, which is quite important. Thank you, Hassan, for asking us about making it a book. We are now in the process of sharing all the slides and all that with a few things that we have done into our Google Drive, so that members can access it. But anyway, I would like to thank all coming in today, the participants and the presenters. Thank you very much. And I think the spirit of the volunteerism among the scholars is here, that we share our knowledge freely, that we do it out of no compensation and honorarium. We do it during Sunday, and I think this is a good thing. We'll probably meet again in December for our December summit, and we will get some interesting topic to be discussed when the time comes, and we will definitely get people to come in even from outside our group. Now our group stands at about 150 members. We welcome more to join in. So again, thank you very much for everyone. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Over to you, Hawa.
Assalamualaikum.
Thank you so much, Prof. Dato' Umar. Okay, on behalf of the Scholar Volunteer Group, I would like to thank our moderator and speaker who have discussion in depth on the budget 2022. So, ladies and gentlemen, before we end, I would like to invite everybody to turn on the camera for the photo session.
Sorry, Dr. Hawa, saya dah tutup majlis tadi.
Tak apa.
I forgot all about you.
Lynn, are you ready?
How do you tell everyone? We can only see you.
Oh, dia skrin lain nampak lain eh?
1, 2, 3.
Highlight. You kena ni. You're highlighting yourself tadi.
One more.
Dia ada control screen tu.
Dia ada control. Kita tengok lain. Orang dia sana nak tengok nampak lain.
You kena convert to gallery.
Oh, gallery.
Yeah, gallery you can see everyone. Okay, so Dan, thank you.
Okay.
All right, thank you everyone. Assalamualaikum.
Thank you, Datuk. Assalamualaikum.
Salam.
Thank you, Azim. Thank you.
Thank you.
Syekh Zahari, thank you. Assalamualaikum.
Thank you.
Salam.
Assalamualaikum. Thank you, Datuk.
Saya tak ada.
Thank you, Irfan.
Thank you.
From Brunei also ya. Today kita ada
Oh,
dari Nisa from Indonesia. Kita ada dari
Hidram
Bandung.
dalam kereta.
Dari Jakarta.
InsyaAllah.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Bagi insyaAllah.
Thank you, Bernard.
Wah. Wah.
Ramai, quite ramai, quite interesting.
Maksimum tadi dalam 50 orang lah.
Bagus.
About 50.
We have from Indonesia berapa orang tu?
2-3 orang lah dari Bandung tadi tengok. Dr. Ismail, dari Nisa, Irfan ada.
Irfan.
Irwan, quite good crowd.
Tak boleh jawab soalan ni lah. Dia tak boleh jawab seronok. Tak tengok jawab dia nak collaborate tu. cross boundary SMEs.
Datuk.
Cross border.
We start session between, we get also, kita member from other countries. Perhaps we also get some session where we do cross border discussion. Betul tak?
Boleh. I think di December 1 macam hari tu, masa Oktober kita ada presenter from Aceh and from Thailand kan, from Brunei. So I think kita akan gunakan that concept juga. Palestin